Is there's a version of this episode that would be super easy to make, the Hallmark version. The one where I tell you to honor all the mothers in your life, the ones who carried you, the ones who chose you, the village, the constellation, blah, 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 blah. And I love that version, and it's the easy version. No? But it's not the whole truth of it. But she was a working Latina mom with a child, a life, a career, a household, and I'm so proud of her for doing that. I'm actually the woman I am because I watch her be that. And there's also the 6-year-old that was left at the gate every week. There is still a 6-year-old within me being left every week. There are so many women that have held parts of me in different ways. And that is what I call the constellation. The constellation is real. It exists. It existed. The thread of the constellation that was supposed to be woven by all of those women, the thread that broke in some pieces and maybe some others were super strong. The thing is that we are the ones who hold the thread. We are the ones that continue threading it through and weaving it into the many directions. Sabrosura pa' ti que. I'm 6 years old. I'm standing in my grandmother's driveway, and there is un zaguán, como a gate. It's a gate right in front of me. It's made of iron, and it's the kind that has those curls all within it. I have my hand on one of the bars, and I'm watching my mom walk away. She is in her uniform. She's a flight attendant. She has her bag on her shoulder. There's a small one with wheels. You know, you've seen them. And she's walking toward the car that will take her to the airport. She turns around and she waves. With my other hand, I wave back. And then she's gone. That happened every week for 6 years. Hola, hola. Welcome back to Café con Pam. I'm Pam Covarrubias, and today is the episode I almost didn't make. So, Mother's Day weekend, we're literally releasing this on Mother's Day. The reason why I almost didn't record this is because there's a version of this episode that would be super easy to make, the Hallmark version. The one where I tell you to honor all the mothers in your life, the ones who carried you, the ones who chose you, the village, the constellation, blah, 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 blah. And I love that version, and it's the easy version. No? But it's not the whole truth of it. Porque I'm at a point in my life where I am tired of half-truths, especially on a day that it's so significant. It's been made significant, no? For all of us, which is Mother's Day. So the whole truth of the episode is here. Because for most of my adult life, I kept telling people I had daddy issues. It was the easy story. You know, it was the story that society could accept. It was the story that kind of like made sense, no? My dad's an alcoholic. He's a musician. He was absent for most of my life. The narrative basically wrote itself. And everyone's like, of course, yes. Everyone nodded. Everyone understood. Of course, it makes sense that you have abandonment issues. Like your dad left when you were 11. No? So I thought that, and I let everyone else think that for many, many years. Porque I didn't have the language for what was actually happening. My abandonment wound actually didn't come from my dad. It came from the gate. When I actually sat down and I did my own inner work, the real mocos sueltos chillando, like real inner work, which it doesn't have to be suffering work, to clarify. But it's just not the Instagram, cute, like work. When I went into my subconscious, when I did tapping and really went into that somatic excavation into my soul, I was able to surface the memory that it wasn't actually my dad who wouldn't show up to things or who was absent for a long time. It was actually my mom walking away every week for the first 6 years of my life, waving through the iron bars while I waved back from the other side. The core memory in my own inner niña that has the actual wound is that. And for a long time, I didn't have the language. I couldn't say it. And why not? I was like, why not? Let's come through. Let's come out with this on Mother's Day. Because it's also part of the truth. My mom was working, she was providing. She was a working Latina mom with 3 kids who, at the time, she had one, but which was me. But she was a working Latina mom with a child, a life, a career, a household. And I'm so proud of her for doing that. I'm actually the woman I am because I watch her be that. And there's also the 6-year-old that was left at the gate every week. There is still a 6-year-old within me being left every week. And both of those things are real. Both of those things are the truth, and they've always been true. They will always be true. Y lo que pasa es que in our culture, we're not taught to hold both. We're taught to pick one. We're taught, bueno, you have to remember she sacrificed for you, so you don't get to be hurt. We are taught she did her best, so your wound is ungrateful. We're taught good Latina daughters don't say their mothers wounded them. We blame fathers. We blame ourselves. We blame the system. We blame everyone else because their moms are sacred. And that's why so many of us are walking around in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, calling it daddy issues. Because daddy issues are acceptable and allowed. And mommy issues are not so much. While my mother was working, of course, somebody had to be on the other side of the gate. That somebody, for most of those 6 years, if not all of them, was actually my grandmother, my dad's mom. She was the one who opened the door. She was the one who fed me. She was the one who scolded me when I deserved it. And she's the one that would me regañaba when I would ask a lot of questions about religion. But she's the one who taught me how to read, too. And she was the one whose house smelled like frijoles cociéndose all the time, or like fabuloso that had just been, like, the floors had just been, iba a decir wiped, pero trapeado, no? Like the floors had just been mopped. And whose voice I can still hear if I allow myself to listen. She was a constellation that held me when my mother couldn't. Y bueno, she's gone now. And this is not the episode where I grieved my grandmother. This is the episode where I'm going to name the loss and allow myself to keep walking, because that is also something we're allowed to do. We're allowed to name a loss, honor it, and we're allowed to continue, because we don't have to grieve everything at once. We don't have to grieve on a deadline. We really don't. And sometimes I meet with clients and they're like, I just need to like get myself together. And I'm like, do you? Says who? Whose deadline are you on? Because especially when it comes to grief is to be allowed. Grief is to be felt. Grief is to be written like a wave. I have a client who paddleboards, and so often I have used the metaphor of the paddleboard and the wave, no? Like the first time you get on a paddleboard and a wave comes and splashes you and like trips you all up, you're like, ooh, I don't know. That's when grief first arrives. And the more you get back on the paddleboard and the more you ride the wave, the easier it gets. Doesn't mean that the wave is not going to come. The wave will always come. You just know how to ride the wave better. Back to my abuela, like she wasn't the only one that was on the other side of the gate when I was left. There were many others. There were the tias, the neighbors, the family friends, the madrinas, the teachers. There were women who showed up in so many different seasons of my life and continue to be honest. There are so many women that have held parts of me in different ways. And that is what I call the constellation. The constellation is real, it exists, it existed. I was held. And for a long time, the story I told about my upbringing was that constellation story. I was raised by a village. I had so many mothers. I still say that story, to be honest, because I'm so grateful to have encountered incredible women that have seen something and been like, well, this is mi granito de arena que I can put on you to support you. And that's a true story. But that story is not complete. It's not the whole story. Here's where I'm going to tell you about the myth of the constellation, because we are living in a moment, mi reina, where everyone is talking about women supporting women, the rise of the divine feminine, sisterhood is sacred, and we carry each other. ¿Qué más dicen? No? Like the feminine is where it's at. We are the rebozo, we're the constellation, and I do want to honor that porque it's the cultural turn toward feminine collective that we need. It's important, it's beautiful, it's real. Y también, I do want to talk about what I don't hear anyone saying out loud today on Mother's Day weekend. And I think we have to say it because while the constellation is real, also the constellation may be incomplete because some of the women who were supposed to hold us didn't. Some of the women who held us in one season broke us in another season. Some of the women who asked for loyalty, maybe they weren't loyal back. Some of them are still in our lives expecting closeness with no memory of the moment they broke the trust. And we're not allowed to say that because it makes us malagradecidas, difficult, bitter, I don't know, malcriadas, groseras, the one who can't let things go. Why? Let's let that go, no? I had a tia that she would tell me secrets. These were not secrets between her and I. It was like things that she would do in her life. And she'd be like, oh, let me tell you like who I went out with. And I was a teenager when this, so it was appropriate. So I was like her confidant in a way. She would be like, but don't tell my mom, like my abuela, no, don't tell them that me escapé en la noche or whatever. Every single time I wouldn't tell anybody because she asked me to. I was a niña who could be trusted with grown woman secrets. And I was so proud of it because I felt close to her. It made me feel chosen. And as someone who wasn't chosen by her mom from 0 to 6, that was special. And so one day I trusted her with one of my secrets and she told my mom. And I got in trouble for being honest. And in that moment, that created something in me that took me a long time to unlearn. That the women who ask for loyalty are not always loyal back. Trust is not always reciprocal, and closeness is not always safe. And so I think sometimes when we experience that in our own ways, the other person that broke the trust, they don't realize this. To this day, this tia, she's like, no me hablas tanto, me reprocha, that I don't call, that I'm distant, whatever. And I'm like, you don't remember? Of course she doesn't remember. Because the expectation is that our relationship will continue as if nothing happened because in some way it's expected that que le debo my trust, right? The women who break trust often forget they broke it. And we often never get the repair we need because it's not something that happens reciprocally. Reciprocally, ¿cómo se dice? No pasa de los dos lados, meaning like one person may be like, trust was broken. The other one's like, what do you mean? It's fine. What happens is that we're left holding both the original betrayal and the present day expectation that we need to continue to perform closeness as if nothing happened. And that is what makes us so exhausted. That is calladita culture at a cellular level. So what the rising feminine narrative skipped is it went straight to sisterhood is sacred without acknowledging that for many of us, the women in our lineage learned to compete for limited resources. They've learned to compete for limited attention, limited safety, limited love. And some of them passed that competition down. Some of them are still doing it. Some of the women in our family still weaponize closeness because that is what was modeled for them. And it's also real because we can want sisterhood and also name where it hasn't existed for us. The myth of the constellation says the village will hold you. The truth is the village is real. The constellation exists. It's real. It's incomplete sometimes. It's human. And many times you have to stand on your own 2 feet anyway. And so the myth is that we are led to believe that if we don't have a complete constellation, we're somehow broken. Everyone has an incomplete constellation in one way or another. Because for a long time, I felt like because I didn't have the model of my own constellation the way that I saw it, and even now as an adult, when I didn't see like having the group of women and like just seeing the external model of what having a circle of trust, let's say, look like, it felt like I was doing things wrong, but it's not. You know, you build your own constellation in the way that you want to, or in the way that has been presented to you, or in the way that your capacity allows, because you are writing your own rules. Hay conversaciones que nos enseñaron a callar, y dinero was one of them. Pero here's the truth. Tu dignidad financiera no debería depender de que traduzcas todo para tu mamá, tus tías, tu abuelita o quien sea. Savvy Ladies just made it easier than ever to get financial help en español. Their free helpline means your mama can ask a question without you having to translate shame, confusion, or whatever her comadre told her. Talleres, clases, consejos, todo completamente gratis y con el respeto que nuestras familias merecen. Porque libertad financiera no es lujo, es necesidad. So whether it's you or your mama who's ready to take that first step, go to savvyladies.org. That is SAVVYLADIES.org. Empieza hoy. La dignidad financiera no se pide, se reclama. If you've started making your cafecitos at home to get on with that morning routine and build the habit of saving money, it could be a good strategy. Pero there might be an easier way to save. Did you know that if you open a new savings builder account at BMO, you can earn a $5 reward every month you grow your balance by $200 or more during the first year? Learn more about how BMO can help you grow your savings by visiting bmo.com/save. bmo.com/save. Conditions apply. Accounts provided in the United States by BMO Bank and a member FDIC. I want to do a quick somatic exercise because it may, I don't know, this may be showing up in some type of way for you. And so let's just do a quick release as you think about the woman who broke trust in your life, the women that you don't want to name, the women that maybe just you wish you didn't have to deal with. And what we're going to do is we're not going to forgive. We're not going to force anything that we don't want to feel. We're simply going to give ourselves permission to notice that that is real. The exercise, whatever you are, this is going to be super easy. We're not going to, quote, tap fully on it. We're simply going to press on the collarbone point. You can simply just put your hands on your chest. So it would be the upper part, right below your collarbone, basically. Or you can use the tapping points. If you're watching the video, this is the collarbone points. My body releasing immediately. And so allow yourself, you can tap, you can just simply press on that part of your body and think about the many times you felt that your own constellation is incomplete. The many times maybe you felt that you didn't have the story that was supposed to be written because the world told you that it was supposed to look like that. And instead of projecting on whoever broke the trust, think about how could you trust yourself a little more? How could you release any resentment against yourself? Not whoever else, because that's deeper work, but think about what might be within you that you may be ready to release. And let your body sigh, let your body yawn. Maybe tears may be coming up. But this is an exercise. It's a very simple exercise where you simply acknowledge what your body's been holding. And see, and you let your body release. I'm not faking this. It truly is happening live as I'm doing this. And so sometimes you may tune in, like your body may immediately be like, oh, it's in your throat. Give yourself permission to release. And you don't have to name what it is even. Simply allow the body to show you. Simply allow the body to show up for you as you give support with the fingers on the collarbone. And you can say, thank you, thank you, thank you to that truth. Because as I'm recording this, I think about everyone who will do this exercise and how collectively we're going to do a sigh, regardless of the time when you listen to this, because time doesn't exist. And so whenever you are listening to this, if you just put your hand on your chest real quick and give yourself the space to let your body release on purpose, consciously. How cool is it that we're all doing it at the same time? Because you're not alone here. You came with company today. We're doing this together. And this was a simple acknowledge that your body keeps the receipt. And sometimes we try to be gracious about it. Sometimes we try to shove it under the rug, pero the body keeps the receipt. So give yourself the space to let your body release whatever tension you may be holding around this. And just say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for my body for holding it. Thank you for the emotion that protected me. You don't have to carry it, at least for today. Again, we're not forgiving. We're not like putting this on whoever else. It's simply a self-regulating exercise. So you don't have to go around, especially on a day like today, carrying something that you don't need to today. So back to the constellation. The constellation was real, the constellation is real, and the constellation is incomplete. And the thing is that the constellation cannot fully raise a kid, a child, because the point of the constellation is to support, no? And the mothering that we didn't receive is an actual loss because it's not a replacement. So having a constellation is not a replacement of the mother. It's not you saying being ungrateful of the constellation that you may have. It's a real truth. And now that we're old enough to do something for that inner niña at the gate, we can now go back to mother her. And the thread of the constellation that was supposed to be woven by all of those women, the thread that broke in some pieces and maybe some others were super strong. The thing is that we are the ones who hold the thread. We are the ones that continue threading it through and weaving it into the many directions. The first direction is inward. That's when you go back to the little version of you, that 6-year-old at the gate, in my case, the 8-year-old who got in trouble for speaking up, the 15-year-old who learned to keep her own secrets because grown women couldn't. Whoever that inward version of you may show up right now, whatever the age, tell her what nobody told her. It's not your fault she left. You are not too much. You didn't do anything to be abandoned. Every woman that came across your life or in front of you were doing their best, and the best sometimes was not enough for you. And that doesn't equal you being a problem, because present self is showing up for little you. And I'm here and I'm not leaving. The first direction the thread weaves is inward, toward that inner niña that has been waiting for someone to come back for. And you're it. You were always it. Now you're an adult. You can go back to her and tell her, all right, what do you need? Outward is the second direction. This is where we give ourselves permission to become the women in the constellation perhaps we needed. Caveat here, we don't owe anyone our mothering. We're not performing martyrdom. We're not martyrs or victims here. What we want to be conscious of is that if we're going to end the broken constellation cycle, then might as well do something with it. And of course, all of this is based on what your capacity allows. No? Maybe you are committed to not breaking trust with a niña because maybe you are the tia now. Maybe you're the comadre, you're the maestra, you're the neighbor, you're the friend, you're the madrina. And maybe that's when you see other niñas who need you on the other side of the gate. And so this is when we give ourselves permission to weave the thread outward. And this is not perfect. This is not all the time. This is not for everyone, but enough for you to say, I'm giving back inward. I'm weaving my constellation inward and I'm weaving it outward because I'm leaving the world better than I found it. Because one day, maybe somewhere, you'll find a 6-year-old standing in a driveway watching her mother leave. And she may look behind her and maybe you open the door. And that's how the lie of, or the myth of the constellation can become a legacy. Because the myth of the constellation is that we don't fix it by complaining. We don't fix it by pretending it never failed us either. We fix it by becoming, for us and for the women ahead of us or that come after us. Y bueno, what I can say is that on this Mother's Day, maybe give yourself permission to not perform gratitude you don't feel. Maybe give yourself permission to not make the call because you may not be ready to call. Maybe give yourself permission to not forgive. Maybe you don't want to post the photo. Maybe you don't want to write the caption. Maybe you do miss her. But give yourself permission to process however your body needs to for that inner version of you, not for the external validation of what the expectation is of you. Because your constellation story, if it hurts, you don't have to tell it either. You can also give yourself permission to grieve the mothering you're missing. And also, perhaps choose when you're ready to pick up the thread inward toward the inner niña who's waiting for you, and then outward toward the inner niña who's waiting for someone like you. Because the village was a beautiful idea. And you, the woman holding the thread, weaving it both ways, naming what was never named, breaking what needs to be broken, building what needs to be built. You're holding the thread. Weave it in whichever direction calls you the most today. If this episode in some way felt like something, please share it. Please share it. I think it's time for us to talk the whole truth. And anytime I see half truths, I cringe. And so I had to ask myself, why are you cringing so much? And going inward is what actually led me to understand that it was cringing because the story is not fully complete. And so why not tell the whole story? Because it's a yes and, it's not a but, it's not a complaint. It's a yes, this happened, and what am I going to do about it? What can I do about it in this moment, even with what I have right now? No? So take the quiz, get the culture quiz, because that which I talked about today has a name. It's the conditioning that made you carry all of this in silence for so long. cafeconpam.com/quiz is where you can take the quiz. You want to really, truly give yourself space to exist in the constellation today that you may have. It may feel super incomplete. It may be fragmented. On this Mother's Day, it's a capitalistic holiday that does bring feelings, emotions, nostalgia. I hope you give yourself permission to feel. And if mom is not here with you, how could you honor her? How could you give yourself the mothering you need? Maybe reach out to the constellation that you may have and see if you can be supported that way. Tag me on socials, keep me posted. I would love to support you. Today and all the days, I have a tapping sequence specifically made for Mother's Day that I'm going to make free today, and I'll leave it up for a week. So it's going to be in the show notes, so you can just sign up. And if you need to go through it and do it, please do, because that's some deeper work that you may need to process. And remember, the body has the receipts for all of it. So let your body release, because you're not supposed to carry all of the weight all the time of this. Bueno, thank you so much for being here. Nos vemos a la próxima y sigue brillando. Café con Pam is created con mucho amor by our small but mighty team. Content production by Nancy Jaimes. Podcast management by Maru Linardi. Social media and marketing by Brenda Figueroa. And me, your host, Pam Covarrubias. To keep the cafecito brewing and the healing flowing, join the Supporters Club for only $5 a month and access early episodes, behind-the-scenes vibes, and exclusive minisodes you won't hear anywhere else. Screenshot this episode and tag me and share what resonated. I love seeing your takeaways. Follow on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's keep the conversation going with us on social media at Café con Pam Podcast, because your voice always matters there. We love being on Instagram and Facebook. Gracias for listening to Café con Pam, a Spread Ideas Move People production. For more episodes, guest info, or resources, visit cafeconpam.com. And if you're healing from calladita culture and don't know where to start, you can take the quiz. cafeconpam.com/quiz for Tia Wisdom and cariño just for you. Sabrosura pa' ti que